Hello, everyone. Great. It feels really good to be on a panel and on a stage again, and not just in front of the Zoom. So today, Women Entrepreneur Diaries is held in collaboration with IMDA to celebrate SG 100 Women in Tech. And I think, as some of you know, this is something that's really dear to my heart, because together with a group of colleagues, we started the whole SG Women in Tech when we were at IMDA to really attract and retain and just inspire more women into the tech sector. And I'm very pleased that it's grown so much to date, and really by everybody who's been really passionate about the cause. So let me just introduce a few of my wonderful, amazing ladies who are going to be on the panel today. First, we have Goh Yiping. Yiping is a venture capitalist, and she started her first startup in her final year at university, and then 3 other companies before she finally is now a venture partner at Quest Ventures. And just about how passionate she is about speaking about this topic, she's actually still on maternity leave. And so we're very, very, very pleased to have Yiping with us today. Woohoo! And Yiping, you really are, like scaring all of us, because I cannot imagine you're still on maternity leave. Like, gonna have to ask you that later about that. Next, we have Shao-Ning, Huang Shao-Ning. And Shao-Ning is very well known to many of us. She co-founded AngelCentral years ago, and together with her husband as a fresh graduate. And now she's one of Singapore's most prominent angel investors, and has set up AngelCentral to encourage others to do the same. So let's welcome Shao-Ning as well. Woohoo! We've also got Alexis Chan. So Alexis was named on this year's SG 100 Women in Tech. So Alexis is a former journalist who's made a career switch, and now she founded Higher Digital, which helps enterprises and high-growth startups build and enhance their digital capabilities with digital marketeers, developers, and designers. So let's welcome Alexis too. And last but not least, we have Sabrina Tan. I think many of you will know Sabrina well. She's a founder, CEO, a super dynamic dynamo lady, and she's a driving force behind Skin Inc., which is the world's first customized serum cocktail bar, and has been using big data to actually drive and grow her business as well. So let's welcome Sabrina. So maybe let me just kick off, with a question for at the start of the entrepreneur journey. So maybe I'll start with Yiping and Shao-Ning. On, at the start of your entrepreneur journey, what made you decide to do this? And sort of looking back, on the whole journey so far, what would have been 1 or 2 things you might do differently? Yeah. Yiping?
Hello, everyone. I think, back then, probably I have been on the startup journey since 2004. It's a long, long time ago, 17 years. The landscape has changed dramatically. Today, it is the world of the moment you graduate, you have so many opportunities. You can join big tech companies now. There's a lot of successful startup companies that you can also join. Of course, then you can also join government and traditional businesses. At that time, before I graduated, I was already working on a startup company on my year 4 in school. At that time, it was really, entrepreneurship is still very early days. The stories that we are hearing is still of Sim Wong Hoo era. And nothing wrong with that. It's just, there's not a whole lot of other role models, right? And NUS have this very, I would say, very early, super early adopter and a huge driver of entrepreneurship scene at that time. So I joined the program. It's an entrepreneurship program, and it was meant to groom entrepreneurs. And me being very Asian and Singaporean, I joined a specific program to achieve a certain result. And I think I'm a very, I guess, good product out of that, in the sense of, when I came back from the US after interning in tech companies there, I just set my mind right to address my calling in entrepreneurship. And at that time, I thought, hey, I'm still very young. There's not a lot to lose. I don't have a family yet, no 2 kids to talk about, no mortgage yet. So I thought that, hey, since I have a very interesting business idea at that time, not much to lose, I can always get a job later on. So why not? Let me just start something to solve certain issues at that time. At that time, I started with my co-founder at that time to build a roaming gateway on planes. So roaming company on the plane, which is about 13 years too early. That was pre-iPhone era, because I couldn't get my CEO all the time when he's traveling. So I thought, hey, I need to be able to get this person. So I thought, hey, if I have a problem to solve, I would like to kind of scratch my itch and solve that problem myself. And we started. And ever since then, surprisingly, interestingly, I've never looked back. So entrepreneurship blood, I guess, runs deep. Even in maternity leave, I'm still launching some side hustle e-commerce while I'm doing other.
Wow, you've got more than one baby going on.
Yeah, I think I forgot. Yeah, so I think it's addressing the entrepreneurship calling.
Very cool.
And knowing that if you fail, you can always do another one, or you can always get a job.
That's very cool. And I think that precisely that point about, you know, the not being afraid to fail, that is really important. And how do you have that, you know, and overcome that as well? Maybe let's have Shao-Ning add on to that. How was your entrepreneurship journey?
So my timeline is slightly earlier than Yiping's timeline, 4 years ahead. Yeah, so mine was in 2000. So right after uni, I think it's also like Yiping, it was really the intention to take charge of your life. And I would say but what's different was actually I worked with IBM for almost 7 months. So when that 7 months, I think Sabrina knows this one, right? I was telling you about it. That 7 months, it made me realize that as a small little new employee, you are sitting behind a big fat elephant's butt trying to make things happen. And then you realize I couldn't get things happen. I get really good feedback from the CFOs and the CEO, but the thing is the things just don't happen. And at the age of, right old age of 24, I felt I was on top of the world. So I want to see change. And then when my recommendations stay on top of the table and don't get implemented, I was very disturbed, right? So it's a bit of push and pull kind of thing. Then there was an opportunity at the time for the job portals that we saw happening in the US. And so it's kind of like just the internet bug kind of beat you and then you went out. But I totally agree with Yiping on this part. I think being a founder, it's a calling. And once you're bitten by the bug, unfortunately, you can't put some kind of balm and think that the bug bite will go away. It's stuck with you forever. So after I exited, actually during Job Central days, Job Central days, there were actually other business ideas that came along, and I actually tried a few side hustle. And then when we really fully exited in 2012, we finished our earnout in 2014. I actually continued having other startups to try out different things. And AngelCentral now, I would say, while facilitating the angel investors to support new founders in the ecosystem, it is also a startup. It's just that I see the gap there and I want to solve the problem. And I think by doing this, I hope to improve the ecosystem, facilitate more new founders, not necessarily young founders, but new founders to come into the space with better support, investment support. Thank you.
Thanks, Shao-Ning. I mean, that's really interesting. And I'm hearing from both of you about serial entrepreneurship is something that once you get a bug, you know, it's hard to let it go or you will just keep on. Well, let's turn to Alexis. And, you know, Alexis, now that the bug has bitten you, the entrepreneurship, could you tell us, I mean, what was your consideration between, you know, you've been in the corporate world and then the switch over to founding your own company?
Sure, happy to share more. So a little bit of background about myself. I used to be a business journalist at Singapore Press Holdings, the Business Times. So I was there for about a year, and I think very similar to Yiping, I went through the same program at NOC, and I think you were probably my senior. But yeah, I think I've always loved like several kind of categories or verticals. Like I always felt that, you know, growing up, I always wanted to be like a writer. I always wanted to be a creative. And they always say, Singapore, it's, the creativity space is kind of limited. So I went to business school, tried to find, a sustainable way, right, to pursue this passion. So eventually, the Business Times seemed like a good fit, a mix of creativity, but, reporting business news. So that's where I came in. Really excited. And remember when I first entered the industry, people were already talking about it being a sunset industry. And, being like a fresh-eyed, out of university, so pumped up for your career, and you're like, oh, so why am I being part of like a sunset industry? So I think the main part was trying to find opportunities, because I think change always brings out opportunities. And at that point, I think the main problem that many media companies were facing was that, readership was going digital, right? Things were all moving online. There were so many different channels. People's like trends and preferences were changing rapidly, right? Like tomorrow they could be talking about something completely different. So it was trying to navigate that change, and essentially, coming out from corporate. I don't think it wasn't a hard decision for me, because I was, in a somewhat of like a sinking ship. It was a sunset industry. It was presenting so much change. So for me, it was easy to hop over. And at that point, the company had so many different like corporate innovation programs. And I think the other part about also being a journalist was that you do interview so many different founders, business owners during the course of your everyday, right? I was interviewing CEOs of like public listed companies, founders from startup organizations. And I wanted to be on the flip side. I wanted to be like solving problems. And I wasn't really sure whether I had the skills to do it. But at the point, the commonality that I found across all like business owners was that there was a problem that you were really passionate about solving it. And the other part was that you were willing to persevere to see it come into fruition, right? So when I first started, I think higher digital was so fundamentally different from what it was today. But I think the main part is just make the leap. Have the perseverance to see it through, and you will get the results. Yeah.
Great, thanks so much, Alexis. I'm hearing a common thread here of finding a problem and solving it, and that's what gets that initial spark going. So turning to Sabrina, you're clearly solving problems for many women with the products that you have. But tell us more about your, how did you start as an entrepreneur, and really because you've been in this for 14 years or so, what keeps you going?
The first question?
No, just maybe to describe how you decided to become an entrepreneur, but also very importantly, what keeps you going.
Right. The genesis of Skin Inc. is that I saw big data, the opportunity of big data, 25 years ago in IBM. So I came from a tech industry for 11 years. First job in IBM, subsequently in Oracle and EMC. So I'm a hardcore solution architect person that understands how to sell enterprise system and storage as well. The whole premises of skin is affected by your environmental stressor. We all wear masks, so you have mask knee, you have inflammation going on, as well as your lifestyle. So for us that drink quite a lot last night, your skin will be very dehydrated today. So, but I just can't stand why beauty is so stereotyping every skin to be the same, because it is how economy of scale works for the commercial reason, right? And with that insanity purpose in mind, I decided to start Skin Inc. And that's the whole reason why the name is so simplified, because we are just about your skin. So with that customized beauty for every you in mind, I felt that as a mother, so Yiping and Shao-Ning all, when you become a mother, you realize how precious is your own sanity and your own time. You can't even brush your teeth well, you can't take a proper shower, and you're like, the last thing on your mind is your vanity. And you look at your vanity graveyard because you no longer have time to apply the cream, right? And you're like, just give me something that works, and like instantly and fast, effortless, but to me, right, at that point in time. So I did something that why I call it insanity, it is because back then I had 2 toddlers. They are now like 17 and 15 now. And the other thing that pushed me out of corporate was just this purpose of empowering women and men today, finding your skin issues to the root cause. But what keeps me going is, most important, going back to this faith of, with data and with tech. I believe I was 13 years early too. Today, custom skincare is everywhere. And with beauty, you can technically diagnose your skin online. And right now we have, because of having the head start, we collected 1 million over skin profile. We collected 200 over 1,000 face scan. And we could innovate during COVID, 5 different products that sold out. So basically that keeps me going, doing things right. Yeah.
Great, thank you so much for sharing. I think that's very inspiring as well. I wanted to, pose a question to my panel, any of you, which is that, it is one thing to have a very good idea, and yourself, I see the passion, the drive, and so on. But to build a good business, a great business, you need to have a good team. So, how would you say, how do you go about building up that team? Any lessons to share? Or especially now with the war for talent out there, how do you go about, finding and building that good team? Anybody? Maybe Alexis, since you're also especially in higher digital, can give us some tips on how to do this?
Okay, sure, happy to share more. So I think what I can do is maybe give you a better understanding of higher digital and a little bit more of where I'm coming from, so you understand the context that I'm providing. So Higher Digital, we are a network of top talents globally. We have over 5,000 talents spread across 16 markets, right? And we are typically working with Fortune 500 brands or growth companies to build their teams, right? So types of people that companies may come to us for could be like e-commerce experts or SEO strategists, or to build data integration programs, right? So it's across 350 different skill sets. So I would say on a daily basis, I at least speak to a good 10 to 20 companies about their hiring requirements. And this can come from even companies that are pre-market launch down to organizations with multiple offices, thousands of employees, right? But I think across the board, every single company is facing a talent war. And I think it's going to change throughout the whole process, right? Whether you are starting to find product market fit all the way to scaling into new markets, trying to build more dedicated teams. And especially I think for startups, if we are focusing on startups, right? The talent challenge is even more pronounced, right? Most star employees come out and they are like, hey, I want to work for a FANG, right? Like a Facebook, a Google, and you're competing against that. You're competing against people who want to start up their own company as well. So how do you kind of provide them the desire to join your organization, especially if your brand name is still unknown, right? So I would say some strategies that have worked well for Higher Digital is not really trying to get the whole team on board, full-time employees. You need to have someone 40 hours per week or more within your office, sign a contract for full-time employment. I think you can always start on a smaller scale. So, start off with a small project, see how it works together, and during the process, you will get to, share a little bit more about your brand direction, more about your goals for the future, and also for you to evaluate whether the other persons are a good cultural fit, right? Because I think, especially for startups, you're not really looking for someone who is so technically skilled. Yes, of course, that's the base, but at the end of the day, I think it's all about attitude as well. If someone is just not a culture fit, and you can't trust that person, it's not going to be a good fit, right? So I would say probably start small, scale it up, and yeah, try not to keep it within the more traditional notions where this person must join you and want to join you from day one, because we should be realistic about it as well.
That's a very good hit. Shao-Ning, please. Yeah.
To add on to Alexis' point, actually, probably Yiping and I went through the same thing. When finding your co-founding team, it's quite a serendipitous setup. So in Chinese, we have this phrase that that says that it's right time, right place, and right timing, right? And unfortunately, as a startup, the way that we started, I didn't have money to hire. So it's really how do you meet the right person, and how do you align the right person? How do you communicate to convince the person to join you for the whole group? So Jobs Factory, AngelCentral, early days, there were 6 of us. But in the end, only 2 of us came out to run the business. And what happened in that process? How do you manage out the 4 person who were initially interested, and then along the way, it became disinterested, and then after that, one of them came back in, and then it's a lot of I would say it made me grow a lot very fast, because it's about, so think about your courtship. I mean, guys probably go through this a lot more, like courting your girlfriend or to become a wife. It's that communication and expressing and knowing what you're looking for and what you want to build in long term. And then along the way, you realize, oh, the other guy or the other girl had a change of mind. How do you manage the process? So I think it's really quite tricky. And so now I changed side of the table and became an investor. So half the time when you're evaluating a startup, yes, certain professional investments, they will say, I would not invest in the solo founders. Or some of them say, I would not invest in couples who are running a business together. So that's why I guess we never got investment. But I think in that process...
We invest in couples.
I should ask you guys a question about that later on. Husband and wife working together.
So the thing is, I understand that. So it's a bit of pattern recognition from the investor's point of view, right? But I think in that process, I invest in solo founders also. But the thing is, I recognize the difficulties, because when you have a difficult situations, you're like looking in the mirror, talking to yourself. It's like your right hand talking to your left hand. So while, I mean, we all know this is open statistics, 70 to 80% of the startups fail in the first 3 years because of co-founder issues. But a lot of time, if it's a single founder, talking to yourself really doesn't help. So when you have 2 brains working together, actually sometimes it comes with different sets of problems, but it's more helpful to have different ideas. But I would say serendipitous. How do you convince a person, when you found the right skill set, right value system, how do you convince a person to join you? How do you manage a process? How do you work out something to align your interests, at least for that 5 to 10 years? And maybe not 5 to 10 years, 3 to 5 years. Nowadays, the timeline is all different. Yeah, so it's a key skill set that we find, that I look for in founders. Yeah.
If you know to add anything, or maybe also comment on husband and wife teaming up to found the company, because your new company, that's what you guys had. You started one with your husband, right? If you're an investor, you look at this. What would you think?
So from Quest's perspective, we have always been supportive of really diversity, and diversity really comes in all shapes and sizes, couples, non-couples, right? So we have really always been very supportive of husband and wife teams. Primarily, I mean, besides meritocracy, primarily we also think that, you know, if both husband and wife are in it, it's all your eggs are into one basket. You actually don't want to fail. If the company fail, it's really because, yeah, I mean, you have done your best, right? But we have had issues where we are a little bit more unsure when it comes to, let's say, boyfriend and girlfriends. But even though that, you know, if we take a long-term view, founders who are motivated and founders who see the goal mine in their company, they will stay and fight on. The company may not look the same as when they have started off, right? Let's say 4 people or 6 people came out. Even if they are not husband and wives, maybe 2 left in the end. So same thing, I think whoever really started the business, folks that resonated with that calling and the success of the business, or let's say not successful yet, but there's just something in it that you want to persevere. It is about you. It is about what you want to do, right? This will all work out long term.
So it's a clarity of vision that they have.
So for us, since we are venture capital, and you know, VC space is a long-term play, right? It's at least a 10-year journey together. So we respect founders, and we always look at the onset, right? We want to invest in you as a team today now, or being a solo person now, how it has resonated with you, how much you have hustled, and then just let time or whatever take its course. Yeah, so there's no guarantee in life, right? And husband and wife or not, there's no guarantee whether, maybe this husband decided that, hey, someone wants, I want to do something else. Same thing, a team member may also decide, hey, my stage of life has changed. I want to do something else. So things will all
I like what
work
you
out.
said about having that clarity of vision. I mean, it is true about the meritocracy and the diversity as well. It's good. Now, changing gears a little bit, because we are in Switch after all, and it's a Singapore Week of Innovation and Technology. I wanted to ask, maybe Sabrina can kick us off here. How do you stay on top of the technology trends and figure out what works, what works best for your business? Because so much is changing right now. Yeah.
Yes. Hello. Yeah, I was just in US a month back, and you'd be surprised that, you think that TikTok over here is just for young kids, like my teens, that in fact TikTok has become the main channel for premium beauty in US, right? And it is because TikTok is able to give you very bite-sized visual impact what it does to your skin. So with that is, and we're trying to find an agency here that specializes in TikTok and even talent, right? And you realize, no, there's not much creativity in this space yet, in this part of the world. So this is where I find that there's a lot of reverse mentorship going on. Like, I'm literally directly working with an intern to see how she snapped her TikTok and giving that creative direction to her. And it is against your own grain, because it's like you want to plan, but actually a lot of TikTok trend can't be planned. So this is something that, as an entrepreneur, you just often have to get out of your own comfort again and again to learn new things. So that relentless quest for any of your hire or your team member to grow, to learn, to adapt, and to be agile about it is very important for me. The other thing is, of course, with COVID, we used to have 200 over distribution point in brick and mortar with Sephora, with Nordstrom in the US. And you realize people stop buying things offline, right? Even though they can try it offline, they will want it to purchase it online, and so it gets shipped to the house. So that kind of trend, and how do you quickly adapt, and being there for your consumer is so important. So to me, this is like a few key things I saw through the trip, and as well as how COVID, we're emerging out of COVID right now, but for 6 months in Europe and in the US, things has got back to normal. So in fact, you don't see that people going back to offline like before, like pre-COVID. So then you need to know where's your middle ground for you right now, even in Singapore.
I absolutely agree with you. I was in the US and Europe just a month or so, and yes, things are pretty much back to normal, but as you said, it's not the pre-COVID normal, but it's a new normal as well. Yeah. Any other thoughts on the technology and how how do you keep up with it, or what are you seeing? Yiping? Yes.
Yeah, we see so many deals a day, right?
That's good news.
Same as Shao-Ning, I guess. I like what Sabrina said, is really to be relentless and to be very agile, to keep up with things, and actually to a certain extent to be open-minded, because to what we knew before COVID is really rapidly changing, right? Of course, what we knew before COVID also we cannot predict the future, but now it's changing even faster, and to a certain extent, sometimes when we look at very early stage companies, when they are sometimes even pre-seed companies, they come to us with one idea, and then the moment after we have invested, it looks like whoa, you have a totally different idea right now. So I think for us, the key thing is still to look at the founders, and as for us who are in the digital space, that to also look at ourselves on how we ourselves can be open-minded enough to evolve, and how to just really not be maybe so critical to the point of like thinking, this is impossible. Yeah, because things are becoming more and more possible these days. Number one, there's more liquidity right now in the market. Something that is impossible before can be way accelerated with just so much money supporting it. So we are changing behavior using capital in a funny way. And the second thing is that our generation, our millennial and the Gen Z folks, my kids are still young, but we have 2 ladies here with teens, and my partner have 3 kids himself that is also very, quite big right now. They have very different thinking from us. I see that way more of them care about how to keep our environment way more sustainable right now, and they choose to do things more deliberate, and they adopt technology so much faster than us. So we really cannot predict what's the next new technologies that's going to come out. So stay open, stay agile, stay relentless in learning.
That's really good. Yeah. Alexis? Yeah.
I guess for me, maybe I can share my experiences in this in 2 buckets. So one is true, at Higher Digital, we do get so many requests on a daily basis from clients or talents that are sharing with us new skill sets they have acquired, right? So that's one camp, and then the other one is probably more from making sure that your business is intact 5, 10 years down the road, right? And it's not eroded by new technologies and competitors. So I think for the first one, we are quite in a good space, I guess, because similar to how both of them are checking out deals on a daily basis, we get so many different requests from some of the top organizations globally, right? And typically it's all these growth stage companies, hyper growth that are really in the mode of experimentation and piloting. And if we do not have those skill sets, immediately our talent team is calculating all the requests, and if there is sufficient demand, we would start assembling teams and talent within our network that have these capabilities. And from there, we're able to share with other clients hey, by the way, did you know that this is trending out in your space? Many companies are now starting to adopt it. Would you want to consider that, right? So for us, we do get a luxury from that front, right? And I think through talent requests, that's truly when you see how companies are innovating, right? Because they're maybe getting people with CDP kind of experiences or marketing technology experiences, data analytics technology expertise as well. And then from the business model side, I think it's no rocket science about it or no secret recipe, but it's just being really relentless and making sure that you are staying on top of the industry trends. And I don't mean just reading the headlines in the newspaper, oh, okay, this is happening, but actually implementing it. And I think ideas can come not just from your industry, because if you're seeing ideas coming from your industry, you're probably not innovating, right? But it's probably cutting across different sectors and saying, oh, I mean, on a daily basis, I'm looking at TechCrunch or Hacker News and saying, oh, this company just raised funds in this category, this is their product and innovation. Could that be applicable also for Higher Digital? So yeah, I think it's about really blocking out time, and for me, that's probably on the weekends or after hours when things are not so crazy, and just making sure that you're going through the motions and and truly thinking how you can improve your business. Yeah.
Great. No, I think that's really inspiring because and how to block out time, which is probably the rarest commodity that all of us will find as well. I wanted to ask one question to you guys about how do you what were your tips for networking and fundraising? I think especially for women. Yeah. Maybe Sabrina. Yeah. We should have one from the entrepreneur kind of view and then one from the investor kind of view.
Right. So I don't have the luxury of a co-founder, early days of Skin Inc. And in that sense, then the first angel of family office that came in needs to be someone really aligned in your vision with you. To me, that is the ultimate North Star, is that someone totally could appreciate that this insanity is going to be that big idea, right? And having that patience to see you through it. And to me, people, I mean, Yiping was just saying 10 years. 10 years is a long time. But in a bigger scheme of things, to build a great company like Amazon, like I don't know, Airbnb, it's sometimes you need to wait out the timing, right? And so you need someone that can be in the rhythm with you. Yeah, and I think that is important. The second thing is, of course, strategic reason that we just pre-COVID, we gotten Misoto, which is Taizo, and he himself is a visionary himself, so he's part of SoftBank family. He never done beauty. He had never done, in fact, like company in skinning, right? Like in Singapore. But he felt that our vision was aligned on how do we impact the wellness industry using technology. So I didn't even went up to him, but through our conversation, I realized, so you never knew who is going to be your investor, but just had to be so true to your call, and people can see that through. I think that is very important.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll add on to Sabrina. You know, as a venture capital or even as a founder before, I guess I spend maybe 30% at least of my time, you know, actively really networking, building relationships, yeah, and trying to potentially talk early to investors, right, for one day when I plan to raise. And then now, of course, now I'm on the VC side, and I spend a lot of time with fellow investors and talking to startup companies, and also joining a lot of women groups. There's a lot of very interesting, useful, empowering women groups these days. But I also went through a phase of dissonance. I think networking is something where if you're the super extroverted, you would strive very well in it. I'm half an extrovert, half an introvert, so I need my time off. So I have my dissonance time where sometimes it can also feel like everyone there is to show that you are a high achiever, or you have something very, I don't know, like very nice home to offer, to host people. So I went through that period, but I think after all this kind of resonance, dissonance kind of period, I realized that there are certain fundamentals that still hold true. One of them is that, number one, you need to know the kind of, let's say, who you are, the kind of value you can bring to the table. Because I find that sometimes networking relationships can be a bit superficial if you don't have something to offer. And it could look like you're the one who always kind of asking. So maybe there is that bit of give and take in networking. Long-term relationship is, again, if we are out there always wanting something, that can come across like it's always like that, you know, Yiping is here and then she wants something from us. But if it's really looking at the view that this is a long-term relationship, I may not need something today, but I would love to help, right? And then it becomes very uplifting. You help each other, not for a very immediate gratification thing that you want, but really trying to be sincere, and the times that you don't need help, you give help. The times you need help, of course, then ask for it. And then in fundraising, always start early. I think that's always helpful, to get to know investors early. Although these days, because there's so much money around and we are investors ourselves, so we are very aware of that FOMO that is happening right now. So good advice from fundraising will be that the more FOMO you can create, the better. But if your business cannot live up to the FOMO you're creating, then the downward, valuation will happen sometime down the line. So to win this fundraising game is to create FOMO, but know that we are all here for the long term. So today you can raise a lot, tomorrow you cannot satisfy that kind of high valuations, then you will drop again. So
definitely have that long-term vision. And
right,
think
always
about
have that long-term vision,
it.
be it in your relationships or be it in fundraising.
Okay, very good. Well, I'm just about to wrap up. So I'm gonna ask each of you maybe just in one short sentence, right, or one phrase, what keeps you going?
So 2 parts to my work, right? So while I angel invest, I spend quite a fair bit of time talking to founders. I think it's that spark in the eye when I share something that's helpful to them, that keep me going.
Okay, cool. Very nice.
I'm turning 40 in January.
That's very young.
Suddenly, I'm realizing that maybe I have max 30 more productive years. It's just funny. And to realize that, oh my God, 30 years can be a short time too. So that's keeping me going. I want to do more. Yeah. So I want to make the next 30 years even more productive.
Cool.
To be a strong finisher, I think in a world of startup, to wrap and finish on a high is very important.
And for me, I think the future of work has just begun, and it's about, continuously like solving problems, innovating. I think it's just exciting to see what's in store for this sector.
Thank you all so much. I think we had a really good discussion today. I'm hearing some things that I thought were some commonalities. I think I'll just summarize them as like 3 Gs. But the first I hear is grit, because in the sheer tenacity and the vision that all of you had when you first started to, I think also the staying part of it. So first is really grit. Second, I have to say is grace. How do you stay calm under pressure? How do you think about it? How do you find the right partners and staying true to yourself and to your vision? Even in the midst of so much change as well. And the last G, I think, is really generosity. I wanted to pick up on what Yiping said. And it's one thing to sort of look for friends, but also I think the point, as you are sharing, about looking out for your friends as well, and paying it forward, but also helping others, and hopefully that it becomes a virtuous cycle as well. So I wanted to say thank you all so much. I think we've probably enjoyed all hearing from them. And please join me in a round of applause for our amazing panel. Thank you.